Welcome to Rotary and Serving Our Community. We do, as Rotarians, a lot of projects around the world. And a lot of those projects are very unique, fascinating. One of the most exotic ones I've ever seen and heard of and had the fortune to meet with are the people that work with the Nomads of Niger. And with us today we have Dr. Bob Skankey, who is a Rotarian very active in that area. Bob, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks, Wade.
Tell us a little bit about yourself. Doesn't have to be Rotary. We'd like to know a little bit about what you do.
Okay, well, California born. Did my medical school in Northwestern University in Chicago. Did family practice for about 5 years. Went back into residency in obstetrics and gynecology. And found my way down to Ojai, California, where I spent the next 35 or so years till 1997 in practice. And after that, life really became exciting and adventurous as I got involved with Rotary more actively and have done a lot of traveling, many places in Africa, South America, Central America, the Far East. Been really, really exciting.
Rotary, how did you start the Rotary career? Where did that start?
Well, I started back in 1960 when I was in general practice in San Bruno, California. And I was interested in getting involved with the leaders in our community, and particularly those leaders who were interested in service, because that was one of my passions. And of course, as you know, Wade, service above self is the motto of Rotary. And so I've had a wonderful, wonderful, exciting life, full of adventure, traveling, all thanks to Rotary.
That's true, Bob. Now, you are one of the recipients of the Rotary International Service Above Self Award, so congratulations to you.
Thank you.
There are very few of those, probably only a few thousand in the world that have received that honor. That, again, being based on your volunteerism through Rotary and outside in your community. So it's kind of fascinating that you were able to use your training, I would say, being a doctor, and bring this to Rotary to do certain specific projects. Was that something you had planned on doing? Was that part of your world plan, life plan, or just something that happened?
It was my goal, and so, you know, if you have a goal and you sort of keep it in mind and you watch for opportunities, and that's what happened. Basically, the particular one we're going to be talking about today is in Niger, Africa. Mm-hmm. And when I was giving a talk about some of my travels in my Rotary Club back in 2008, after the meeting, Leslie Clark, who heads up Nomad Foundation, came up to me, and she'd been very active in Niger with the nomadic people, and really, really helping them a lot, but had not got involved in medical things. And she asked me if I would be interested, and she was very enthusiastic, and what could you say? Absolutely, yes. And so within a year, we had the first clinic, permanent clinic, ever constructed in the area where these nomadic people were living.
Now, I found out something fascinating about the nomads, and that is they literally still do a rotation. They move from place to place on an annual basis. So that's pretty fascinating about them. Internationally, I had the privilege of traveling with you to Mexico. I thought that was one of those great experiences. And by the way, you're a great traveler. I enjoyed traveling with you a lot. But you brought a lot to the project itself. Your knowledge, ability to see things specific, that would be medical, those type of needs. So I'm sure this was a perfect fit for you.
Yeah, it was a really, really good one.
Let's start with the slides. We'll go through some of these. The first slide shows a map of Africa, I believe, and you wanted to show where Niger is, because most people do mix that up with Nigeria, or at least a portion of that. So Niger, I see, is dead center, middle of the continent.
Dead center, it's the blue one. Yeah, it's considered one of the hottest countries in the world, one of the poorest countries in the world.
And that is probably mostly the Sahara Desert, then, would be my guess.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Good. Next picture we have shows picture of the nomadic people, I believe, on camel.
Right. These are Tuaregs we're looking at right there.
Okay.
And they're the camel people. And it's fascinating because they still have camel trains moving things where roads aren't, you know, between various villages.
Now, are these Rotarians? Do you know offhand? Because I know there's actually a nomadic Rotarian club.
Well, there's a Rotarian club in Agadez, which is in a fairly good-sized city, and we wouldn't call them nomadic. They're Tuaregs,
Okay.
the same race as these, but
They became more stationary than
yeah,
they've developed.
yeah, right.
I see. One of the requirements that Rotary has is that you have to have a Rotary Club in the area in order to do a project with them. That was what I understood was the reason that they started that Rotary Club.
That's right.
I'll share this with you. I brought with me one of the trading banners of from Niger. This was the first one that club actually put out, and it was made out of camel hide, and that was given to us, given to me as one of the gifts from the group of people that came here from that. A fascinating item. They couldn't afford, or actually it was easier for them to make this out of the hide than it was to actually do one out of you know, a painted material or something like that. Little story on that one. I put that in a shadow box because when I first got it, I thought it was beautiful. I mean, it was a great gift to me. But when I brought it home, my whole house smelled like a camel.
It's true.
So I ended up having to move it outside. We had to cure it for a little bit before I brought it back in again. But it was one of those great gifts that, yeah, you just never forget. The next picture shows a picture, I believe that's Leslie Clark.
It's Leslie Clark, and in the distant background, you can see our clinic, which we constructed in 2008, 2009. And it was right along the migratory route of the Tuaregs and Wadabis. One of the things it's important to note is that our water tank was donated by Rotary. Rotary just helped us so much. The Nomad Foundation helped us in many, many ways financially and gave us some water. That water was basically used for the animals of the people who would come by. We didn't have water in our clinic. We had to have it shipped in.
Okay. The water itself, does that come from wells?
The water comes from wells, right? The water comes from wells. That's the critical part. They have surface water about 3 months out of the year when it rains a lot, but it's very, very contaminated. Many bad organisms.
I guess so, because it's a runoff and collecting of water.
Yeah.
I heard stories also because it's so sandy there in the desert that they have to sometimes go 150, 200 feet down, hand dug a lot of these wells.
Yeah.
That's pretty
Even
scary.
further than that,
Wow.
200 or 300 feet sometimes.
And I heard another story from Leslie, I believe, that said that those people that dig those wells, they can only do one in their lifetime. They just freak out. I mean, after that, they, quote, dodged the bullet, and they were able to survive a cave-in of those wells.
Yeah, they're scary.
That is definitely
Air
scary.
down there when they get deep is bad.
I bet you it would be, yeah. Next picture we have shows a structure. Looks like it's made out of stone? Adobe?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
And this is a picture of one of the clinics, would be my guess?
This is our clinic.
Okay.
Yes, so we only had one in ours. And it's surrounded by, in this picture, by a number of the people who are really interested in getting care. One of the beauties that we were able to do with this clinic is to really improve the health of these people significantly. First of all, they would avoid going to clinics in towns and stuff because they were very, very poorly treated. In fact, the one hospital in Agadez, they only went there if they knew they were going to die, and that was the last thing. One of the beauties of what we did was 2 things. One, in this clinic, we had the best pharmacy in the whole country because we brought ourselves over all the medications. We brought 2 50-pound bags each, and there was at least 3 of us that come, so we'd have as much as 300 pounds of medicines, which would get donated. Direct relief in Santa Barbara was a big help for us in that. And so, number 1, we had good care, and number 2, we were very kind to them, and we appreciated them, and we were respectful for them, something they just hadn't gotten elsewhere. One of the things I like about it as I've got more involved with Rotary to see what it does is that what this does is increase our positive relationship between us in the United States and those people in Niger. So they really appreciated us.
Now, these the people here at the clinic, how long do they stay there before they move on? Or is that, you see some of them staying there a year longer?
Oh, no, these people are on the move, so that there's certain times of year when they may stay as much as a few weeks, but mainly they're really on the move most of the time. So we just have a group of them that are coming through. There's a few that have established units which become semi-permanent, but those are the older people or the very younger people. Those with the cattle need to be moving to better pastures.
Got it. Okay. I have a picture here showing you shaking a gentleman's hand. I believe that's you shaking a gentleman's hand.
Well, that's,
you got the desert cover on. I can see that.
I threw that in the next slide just to show that we did have a good relationship, and we developed a very close relationship with them.
Very good. Now, my question would be, as part of the acceptance of that culture, is it something that you do to wear their clothing, or is it something that is just comfortable?
Yes, yeah. Comfortable.
Very comfortable.
It's hot and strange. Their garb is much cooler.
Much cooler.
Yeah.
That's what I understand. They say that it insulates quite well, believe it or not, especially in that type of heat, which is amazing. You wouldn't think so, but evidently it must work quite well. The next picture we see of a woman here with a child, and it looks like another child behind her.
Yes. They're beautiful people, as you can see. They're really, really handsome people, and they love life, and part of our care has turned towards the maternal aspect, the obstetrical aspect, because these beautiful children, or this wonderful lady, has one chance. The lady has one chance in 7 in her lifetime of dying in labor. She had one of the highest maternal mortalities in the world, and so we turned our attention to that after we got the clinic going and established well.
So it sounds like that would be one of the areas of focus that you would have the expertise
exactly.
to help out with.
Right.
Outstanding. Next picture down, we have the picture, I believe this one is of the clinic. Is that correct?
Yeah, right. The biggest challenge, one of the big challenges we had was communication, because they were illiterate. They did not speak English, and I only spoke English. And so I had initially had to have 2 interpreters, and it was like almost a game. I'd have to ask one interpreter, Leslie Clark, that happens to be, and then she would ask in French, Aisha, who is our RN, who was trained there. And then Aisha would ask the illiterate lady who was having the problem what her symptoms were, and then it would come back to me. And by the time we got back, well, it was a little hard to interpret, but it was one of the challenges. The other slide that we're going to show next.
Medications?
Whenever you prescribe medications, you've got to be able to tell the person how to take them. Now, they can't read, okay? So we developed a little program of how to identify how often they're to take their pills. If you look on the pill, the one on the left lower, you got a picture of a worm. That's for worms, and there's 2 slashes on the left and 2 slashes on the right. That means 2 in the morning and 2 in the evening, and you can see how it would work for the rest of the medication.
Oh, very good.
So, and worked. They loved it.
That makes a lot of sense to me. Yeah, good way to do that. Perfect. Our next picture, we have some women sitting along on a floor there. Is that also, I believe, probably in the clinic?
No. Now, this gets into us talking a little bit about what we did to correct the maternal problems we have there, the obstetrical problems. We built a training center, which was a little ways away from our clinic. And then we identified that one of the reasons these women had such a poor lifespan and had so much loss of life was that they had no medical care at all, never had any training. And the interesting thing is that they, within their little units that are moving, their little encampments, they never had identified a one woman to take care of obstetrical areas. And so we identified, we started off, this is our first year, that's our picture of our first year, 2011. We got 5 ladies, 3 Tuaregs and 2 Wadabis from 5 different units, and they were chosen by their leader, by their chief, and brought them down here to train them in prenatal care and as a beginning part of, and eventually in delivery techniques, and eventually in all aspects of pregnancy and delivery. The interesting thing is the 3 ladies could not speak the same language as the other 2 ladies, but women being very gregarious, they got along just wonderful. And when we taught, we had to teach one language and then the other language. It was interesting.
Wow. And then the next picture is probably a continuation then of that educational component?
Right. One of the first things we taught, and maybe one of the most important things we taught, was cleanliness. And we had a bowl and soap and taught them how to wash their hands. The fascinating thing was that this lady on the left there, when she got through washing her hands, she looked at her hands and said, "I didn't know my hands were that color."
Literally.
Yeah,
Wow.
right.
Wow.
she said that in her language was
Of course,
interpreted.
of course. Yeah. That is fascinating. And that becomes part of the hygiene planning that you would have for delivering babies?
Right. So that we would have them actually to bathe the woman in labor when she came in, and made sure instead of delivering in the sand like she normally would do, is delivering on a clean cloth.
Great. Next picture we have shows, actually you're going to have to go through that one. I have no idea what they're doing.
Right. Well, that's a model we brought over, a pelvic model, and we were teaching delivery techniques.
Oh, okay.
And it was really pretty important. For the head first delivery, it was helpful teaching so that women wouldn't get as much of a tear down below at the delivery. But on breeches, we saved many kids' lives because they didn't know how to handle breeches, which is bottom first. Right. And we were able to teach that. This is showing head first.
Oh, so that's part of the technique training that you have specific.
Right.
Okay. Then the next picture, again, same part of the educational component there. I imagine that's the instructor in the front.
Right. This has to do with our desire to develop a self-reliant program. In order to do that, we had to train teachers. So this is about 2013 now. And the 2011 ladies, Miriam is the one on the right, is now become a teacher, an instructor for us. And she is now teaching. So it started out with me teaching, and then through Aisha, who is our RN. Then Aisha was teaching, and now we actually have one of the matrones, or ladies who take care of it, teaching.
So that becomes more sustainable then. You have the people there on site.
Absolutely.
And that would then be able to also expand the knowledge of those people, having more available for them.
Yeah.
Very good. The next picture, we show a picture of ladies. It looks like they have the solar lights, the Unite lights.
Yeah,
is that correct?
Exactly right.
Okay.
Many fascinating things you sort of run into. Over there, they don't have any lights. And so if a girl goes into labor on her own, she doesn't really, as night, she doesn't necessarily really need it. But if you're going to have somebody helping her, she's got to, that helpmate has got to be able to see what's going on. And so we developed those lights, which were very, very helpful. They could wrap them around their necks, the matrone, and therefore was able to identify what's going on at night as well as during the day. It was great.
Makes sense. Now, you told me one interesting story, probably about a year or so ago, about this same trip that you went on, that some of the nomads actually, as culture, tradition, the women have to go out and bear their own child without the assistance of anybody out in the desert.
That's right. Before we developed this program of matrones training, we had the most common way they did it when they went into labor with no prenatal care when they went into labor, they would go out in the desert by themselves, away from their village, away from their unit, and either were able to deliver successfully or not.
Wow. And you said the mortality rate was...
1 out of every 7 women in that country succumbs to their labor delivery process.
Wow.
One of some things that we don't show here is the other 2 things that we did during prenatal training. And another one was nutrition. And on nutrition, we initially were bringing over prenatal vitamins, which made a significant amount of difference. I don't know what our time is, Skip.
You're good.
Okay. One of the first days I was in the clinic, they brought in an elderly man, 6 sons brought him in, gently put him down. He was semi-conscious. He was moaning, wouldn't respond to anything. They said, "We think he's dying. He hasn't eaten in a week, and he hadn't had anything to drink in 2 days." And I looked at him and I said, "Yeah, it looks like he's dying." And I couldn't see what the problem was. So we gave him some Tylenol. That's our strength. That was our pain medication at that point. And I gave him some vitamins. 3 days later, I get a report that he's up, talking, eating, drinking, feeling significantly better. Not completely better, but it turns out it was the vitamins. Their nutrition basically is the milk from their animals and millet, which is a good protein, but that's it. That's their main course, and no vegetables or anything of that nature. So they have a subclinical problem with vitamins, vitamin deficiency. And this occurred time and time again. And so carrying that on to our pregnancy situation, as many as half of the women that do die, they die of postpartum hemorrhage. They bleed to death afterwards. Yeah. And the reason for that is that uterus will not contract down. And so it's blood vessels that are left open, they bleed. The reason they don't contract down is they usually get dehydrated, their nutrition is poor, and they're exhausted. And so we distributed to our matrones. One of the things we distributed besides vitamins was we distributed a medication called misoprostol, which clamps down that uterus. Really, really, really good. So initially, the first 2 years that we used this, our matrones used that quite a bit. They used them and saved many, many lives. Okay, the last year, 2015, 2014, only 1 dose was used after those for the whole 15 people. Why? Because the key thing was good prenatal care. They were getting hydrated, by the way, and hydration. The way we took care of that was every time they take a drink of water, they take a drink of water for their baby, doubled their hydration. Nutrition, we had prenatal vitamins, which eventually has been replaced by a tree that grows out there called moringa. This is sort of the magical tree, miraculous tree, because the leaves have all these essential, they're like prenatal vitamins. They have the essential vitamins and other nutrients, iron and good things.
Yeah, you told me about that moringa tree, by the way, and I did see some of those in Honduras. They're actually using those now.
Yeah, they've become very, very popular.
They have.
Very, very, very good. So,
last picture we have shows a young family, I'm guessing.
Yeah, with a new baby.
With
a
new baby.
To see.
Very good.
And just a reminder of the fact that now after 500 deliveries, we have not lost a mother.
Wow.
And not lost a baby who was born alive. We've had some problems, but on babies that have had problems during the pregnancy. But so we've had significant success with this. Really significant success.
That's definitely making a difference.
Yeah, and the program is now functioning on its own. We got that nurse, Aisha, is over there running the program. She's got instructors. She's got three very good instructors, and then we've got 15 units that are got these ladies in working. These ladies are just well, it would amaze you because totally illiterate, but they are their ability to remember. They remember everything I told them, everything we taught them 2 or 3 years later.
Wow.
Just amazing.
Wow. That is. The plans that you have in place right now seem to be working well, but do you anticipate expanding the education component of this to reach more people? Is that something that Rotary's going to be doing, that you'll be doing?
Right now, we're looking into putting onto film or some means my teaching program. In fact, I'm meeting in a few days with a person who's going to be helping with this through Rotary, through Rotary sponsored. And then I'm always on the lookout for any place, developing country who has a situation that I can go and teach the midwives and develop midwives to help them. Yeah, so bring them on.
That sounds good. And I know you're serious about that because I've seen your work. You do outstanding things there, Bob, and we sure appreciate that. The other portions of this project, you talked about nutrition, things like that, and all the different areas. Is that all coordinated through one effort, or do you have actually different grants, different programs set in place for these? For example,
our grants are divided into our trips.
Okay.
Okay, and so we go at least once a year, sometimes twice. We usually spend 3 weeks, and so we use grants to help us. But when we get over, as far as training the women, we put everything into 2 to 3 week intensive course, which somehow or another they remember and they get excited about and they work with and they make happen. No, we don't. You split it up by trips. That's basically how it does. And it really takes 2 trips to nail everything down really good. And then we've gone over almost every year, gone over and checked out. And we'll get out and go into the various encampments and visit with them and find that just be amazed at what they can do. They've even learned how to take blood pressures because toxemia, hypertension is a problem that occurs also. And remarkable.
Well, Bob, with that, thank you very much for your time. We sure appreciate it. It's fascinating what you've been doing for Rotary and with your life. And definitely appreciate you taking the time to do something outstanding as this and saving that many lives. Amazing. So again, thank you very much for joining us. With that, thank you everybody for attending our show. Hopefully you learned a little bit about this on what Rotary actually does. Bob here is from Ojai. He's from the Rotary Club of Ojai. Leslie Clark's actual foundation, the Nomad Foundation, you will also find in Ojai. So take a look at that, see what they have. Some fascinating things going out there, and it's amazing what Rotary can do reaching out around the world. With that, thank you. We will see you next time.